Hey everyone, namaste. So this is the part 3 of the book summary for the book It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are, and How to End the Cycle by Mark Wolynn. So this is part 3 of the presentation. And so we're going to go over pathways to reconnection, chapters 10 through 14. So chapter 10, from insight to integration, and we start off right away with an exercise number 12, making peace with your family history. And this is an abridged version of the exercise. Please do go buy the book. Please go check out the book from your local library. It's so popular that chances are it's going to be in your local library, not only in English, but also in other languages. So check it out. Number 1, again, evoke the traumatic event and family members involved. So hopefully you still have the notes from part 2 or the core language map that you constructed in the genogram handy next to you as we do these exercises. So evoke the traumatic event and family members involved. Describe what happened, visualize what they might have gone through. Take the time to reconstruct the emotions, evoke the emotions as well. Where in your body do you feel and resonate with this? Place your hand there and allow your breath to fill the area. Visualize the family members involved. Tell them you are important. I will do something meaningful to honor you. I will make something good come out of this tragedy. I will live my life as fully as I can, knowing that this is what you want for me. And you can construct your own personal sentences and language that acknowledge the unique connection you share with them. So we're going to go through some healing sentences in the next slide, but take your time with this as you visualize. Feel free to pause the video. So some healing sentence examples could be what happened to you won't be in vain. I will do something meaningful and dedicated to you. Or I will honor you by living fully. I'll live my life in a loving way. Or now I understand, and it helps to understand. So here are some examples from my visualizations with my grandparents. So for my grandfather, I said, "Grandfather, I see that you've been through a lot, and I'm so glad you made amends with your family of origin and are now a part of the family system. And I will benefit from that too. So thank you so much for making amends." So coming from a place of gratitude and respect for him, what he's gone through, recognizing it wasn't easy for him, and recognizing that now in my visualization that he's made amends and I can receive the positive benefits from it because he did so in my visualization. And for grandmother, I see that you've been through a lot. And I'm so glad grandfather made amends with you and you with him. You are both happy in the family system now, and I will benefit from that too. So thank you so much. So again, appreciating what my grandmother has gone through based on, the real family history, the linear history that sort of actually happened in the past, recognizing that it was difficult for her, recognizing that her rejection of the grandfather was completely understandable, to allow her credit for trying to be strong, doing what she could at the moment to either make ends meet or to ensure survival for everybody else in the family. So, absolutely recognizing her importance, and recognizing that she did her best, and recognizing that we see her, that she belongs. And in my visualization, I was able to see her make amends with the grandfather. And of course, I thank her for allowing me to visualize that the family has come back together and they've made amends, and allow me to receive the benefits of them coming together again. And of course, give gratitude to the grandmother, the grandfather, and give gratitude to this visualization that will assist me in my own life, in my ability to move forward in a way, to connect with the world in a way that really benefits me. So that's my own example, just to throw that in. So, from healing sentences to healing images. Now, connect to an image or feeling. Maybe a sense of belonging, connection, and support. They establish an internal reference point of feeling whole. And we can refer back to these reference points when old feelings and conditionings come up that threaten our stability again. So we not only want to say the sentences, we need to be able to feel it as we say it and imagine it. So back to my own example with my grandparents, not only was I just saying it in words and sentences, I was imagining them at the receiving end and receiving my goodwill on the other side, and being able to respond in a positive way to me. So, hence, evoking my own emotions of connection and wellness. That's the power of being able to visualize in images, not just words. So, there are rituals, exercises, practices, and healing images that we can consider. And this is, if you need more explanation, you can find this in the book. So it could be placing a photo on your desk, visualizing returning the guilty feeling to whoever was the originator, or visualize the person in question. And this again refers to Zach's example, where the grandfather was a perpetrator in his core trauma story. So he put a photo on the desk, visualizing allowing the grandfather to take away his guilty feeling. Apply it to your own circumstance, where you could consider lighting a candle, connecting consciously with a loved one who's passed, or writing a letter to make amends, to recognize somebody, or placing a photo above bed. So in family constellation and in the workshop that I went to, they actually like this exercise a lot. It's to have a photo of your mother next to your bedside, and every single night practice being loved by the mother and being able to fall asleep while feeling the mother's love, and asking your mother to reconnect you to the motherly love, to a sense of being nurtured if the early bond with the mother was broken. So this is actually really important for a lot um, a lot of circumstances where we did not have we were not able to have a continuous bond with our mothers from baby to maybe 3 years old. So if the bond was anyway broken or severed, even for a small period of time, this is a great exercise, and do it at least for 21 days. And as you go to sleep, ask the mother to bring you back to a sense of connection to her, bring you back to her love, to be able to receive her love. And imagine yourself allowing your mother helping you. And this works even when your mother is still alive. I can attest to that because I'm still doing this exercise and it's already helped me a lot. We're not doing this again. We're not doing this to change somebody else's behavior. We're not doing this so that the other person apologizes, the other person realizes, oh, I'm so sorry, I was wrong, I wronged you. Not at all. They did what they had to do out of their own reactions to their own subconscious beliefs, whatever they inherited. So we do this so that we could come to reconciliation, reconnection within ourselves, and be able to flow with life again without these traumatic cycles pulling us back in some ways. That is all. We do not need other people to change for this. And we actually honor and respect how other people, even if it's our close ones, mother, father, whoever, we actually respect where they are in life. That's very, very important. And then developing supportive image, visualize being blessed, cared for by the family systems, or cared for by the originator, the genesis of the traumatic event, such as, again, going back to Zach's example. I guess in case you didn't start watching, at least from part 2, then Zach's example was that he had the thought of, I want to die, since he was very, very young, and turns out, actually, he enlisted to go to Iraq in order to die under fire. But it turns out his platoon, his unit didn't get sent over to Iraq. They stay stateside. So as soon as he learned that, he's like, I'm having none of it. I'm going to go AWOL. I'm going to go seek out death. If death doesn't come to me, he threw himself in all sorts of precarious situations, wanting law enforcement to put him down, but none of it worked. So afterwards, he decided to do healing work and started doing this work. And then he realized that his grandfather, who was a part of Mussolini's cabinet, did some really bad things and caused the death of a lot of people. And so basically, he was atoning for the punishment that should have been dished out to the grandfather, but didn't, because the grandfather somehow faked documents to come to the United States. And those who remained behind as a part of his cabinet were all rounded up and put down. So he realized that he was making amends for his grandfather. So coming back to developing a supportive image, sort of he was able to imagine his grandfather taking away the guilty feeling, as in like number one, visualizing returning his guilty feeling of still being alive to his grandfather. And he was able to imagine that his grandfather was able to make amends with those he either directly or indirectly cause their deaths. And now it's sort of being able to visualize now that grandfather being able to bless him back and be able to see his grandfather support him, support Zach, to now live his own life without having to carry this family trauma or the grandfather's own responsibility. So being able to imagine both ways, how we see the originator and how we still respect the originator, but also returning what wasn't ours to the originator, and conversely, being able to see the originator giving us blessings for us to move forward towards life, towards light. So that was Zach's example. And creating boundary, visualize or use something to symbolize creating healthy boundaries with family, especially with those who have merged with a parent. It's good to visualize something that's able to allow you, remind you to have that healthy boundary, and also to be able to visualize, again, the originator of this trauma, originator of this habit behavior, to bless you back, to say, yes, I understand the need for this boundary in order for you to live your life. Imagine them bless you back. So again, if you need more explanations, they are in the book. So healing sentences and the body. Notice body sensations. Still chapter 10. Okay. Notice body sensations as we speak the healing sentences and do the ritual visualizations. Where is it affecting us physically? Is there chest pain? Sensations in the chest, sensations in the throat. How are the limbs? Feeling numb, breathing? How are the rhythms of breathing? And then bring our breath to that area and say, I've got you. So invoking some self-compassion practices, be able to self-soothe, be able to be kind to ourselves, to approach ourselves with kindness. So examples of healing sentences we can say to ourselves include, I've got you, I'm here, I'll hold you. This is difficult work for you to do, so I've got you, I'll hold you right there. I'll breathe with you. I'll comfort you. I'm right here, not leaving until you feel safe and supported. And of course, with this, you can imagine that maybe it's good to have an entire free afternoon to yourself. If you if you decide to follow this work and do the exercises. So make sure you leave a lot of time so that you can actually be there for yourself and leave time for yourself, and not rush through. Okay, and healing sentences toward parent. So if we're working on a broken relationship with a parent, it's helpful to develop body awareness. I would say any type of healing work requires body awareness. So you can seek the help of a body center therapist or cultivate mindfulness on your own, because there's so many resources out there, so many practices, so many ways to cultivate mindfulness, and so many resources on how on the internet. So go ahead and research into that. But basically, We want to develop a sense of being able to be here, present in the now, to be able to allow the body sensations to arise and to be able to hold the body sensations, not shun it, not repress it, not try to push it away, be able to hold that sensation with a gap. So not projecting it into the past, not projecting it into the future, but being able to be with it in the present moment without identification. So as body sensations come up, use breathing to stay with the sensations and be able to sense the body's limits so you can proceed at the right pace for you. So if you do get backdraft, which is when the sensations get too intense because the trauma was too intense, whatever the reason, at least be aware to a point where you can pull yourself out of this experience if it does get too intense. So if you're really having difficulty entering your body, being embodied, as we say in mindfulness practice, if you have issue being embodied, then I would start with small practices that allow you to practice being embodied. So start with, just feeling the tips of your hands. This is very sort of meditation, mindfulness meditation 101. So start with feeling the sensations in your fingertips or in your hands. Be able to really be with it without rejecting it and without diverting attention. That is the start. So I don't know if Wolynn would actually recommend having a good grasp of an awareness practice before doing this work, but for me, because I have been through this work, I have to say having body awareness, being able to see what arises out of not only body awareness, having awareness of what arises out of the mind and how the mind connects to the thoughts that come out of mind, how those thoughts connect to emotions that get provoked, that get that arise because of the thoughts, or it could start with non-declarative memories. It's the emotions that arise first, it's the body sensations that arise first, and then thoughts can form because of it. So having awareness in general really helps this work. I'm not going to say what to do. It's you decide for yourself, but all I can is having awareness, some sort of awareness practice underneath your belt really, really helps. So just putting it out there. So my example of healing sentence to parents is, yeah, I understand now why you couldn't be there for me. Your parents weren't there for you either. I'm so glad that you are also on the healing journey now. And this is in full recognition that my parents were actually there for me when I really needed them. Absolutely. They were busy tending to survival. They had to work to make ends meet, blah, 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 blah. And so they weren't there for me in a way that maybe a baby needed the parents to be there. But as an adult reflecting back, oh my God, they were doing their best to provide for me, bar none. So, in my healing journey, it's great to recognize that it actually brings me back to a sense of reconnection, brings me back to love, brings me back to a sense of wellness, foundational wellness, when I'm able to see that they were giving me their best. And this work allowed me to see that my grandparents affected them a lot as well. And my grandparents weren't able to be there for them, that they really needed it when they were little. And so we start to piece together these generational traumas, family traumas, inherited traumas that really didn't start with us, nor our parents. And we get to give thanks and gratitude to the originators for having done what they could, and to sort of have that conversation to let them know that there's no need to continue on with this family trauma, this family storyline anymore, because we're in a new age. We're in a new mindset. We're in a new world. We're no longer facing, I don't know, it's not my example anymore. We're no longer facing drought. We're no longer facing hunger. We're no longer facing poverty. We're no longer facing some sort of mass atrocity, mass crisis, blah, blah, blah. It's now, in order for me to thrive, I got to go the other way. But we respect the forebears, the forerunners, for literally fending off the bears and tigers, and the lions, oh my, because they really did that for us. So yeah, so that's my healing sentences to my parents. And there are more examples of healing sentences in the book, which I'm going to skip. Go ahead and, again, please get the book. Even if you don't read it from this presentation, from my presentation here, go to the chapters, go to the segments that actually apply to you, and at least have that reference in the back of your head. So when the next time something gets triggered, you remember to refer back and do the exercises, or at least look at the examples for inspiration. So there are healing sentences for when we have rejected a parent, healing sentences to say to a deceased parent, healing sentences to say to an unknown or a strange parent, healing sentences when we merge with a parent. So a lot of examples from Mark Wolynn. So now the core language of separation, chapter 11. Separation and disconnection can happen despite the parent's best intentions. Sometimes it's absolutely out of survival, just out of logistics, or out of just unplanned crisis that they can't be there. Circumstances in life happen all the time. So like adoptions, hospitalization, illness, work, whatever. This happens, this is more common than we think, just because life happens. And emotional disconnections can happen despite physical availability as well. So fear, anxiety, depression, or even a stressful relationship with a partner can cause sort of an emotional distancing, an emotional disconnection, even when they're physically present. And the good news, again, is healing can happen anytime in our lives. So the core sentences of early separation can sound like, I'll be left out, left alone. I'll be abandoned. I'll be rejected. I'll be all alone. I'll be helpless. I'll lose control. Or I don't matter. They don't want me. I'm not enough, or I'm too much to handle, or they'll leave me. They'll hurt me. They'll betray me. I'll be annihilated. It's hopeless. So more on the depressive side. And now the core complaints of early separation could be mom was cold and distant. Mom was emotionally unavailable. We really don't have a relationship, and I was scared of her. She would always push me away. She doesn't really care about me. She was self-centered. It's all about her. I didn't feel safe with her. And disruptions and attunements happen. So normally the repair process is beneficial for both mother and child to learn how to handle brief moments of distress and to reconnect. So repeated repairs can build a sense of trust and create secure attachment. So basically we're in the modern times. Just disruptions happen even when the mother's right there and they're on the phone talking on the phone, like the baby really needs to be comforted for some reason for something, but the mother is busy on the phone talking to the aunt, talking to whoever, and they're not really present right here. Or and it's not the mother's fault, it's the sign of the times, right? If I were a mother, I would be doing the same thing. There are times when I just got to be on the phone, or I just got to tend to whatever it is I'm cooking on the stove, and then the baby took it the wrong way for some reason, and then I'm doomed and I have to call myself a bad mother. No, of course not. So disruptions absolutely happen, and the repair process actually strengthens the bond. After, I can imagine if I were a mom, I guess, after some time away from the baby cries, I come back and reconnect. This repetition actually trains the baby to feel safe, even when I need to pull my attention away momentarily. So basically, like training a dog to not have separation anxiety. After you have these repeated exercises of, you come back, reconnect, and then go away, and then they will whine for a little bit, but then they realize, oh, you're gonna come back at night again after you go to work, and then they can just build on that routine. So it's the same thing. So it's when a connection is disrupted by a significant break or period of time that we disconnect from the fundamental flow of life. If the connection remains severed, a stream of negative images can lock the child in self-doubt, frustration, rage, numbness, insensitivity, and the extremes become sociopath and psychopath. So again, the idea is not to avoid disconnection. That just doesn't happen in the real world. The idea is that when the connection is not repaired, or it just stays broken for a very long, significant period of time, then it disrupts the flow of life in the child, and it locks the child into projections. Images are basically projections of their own fate and puts them in self-doubt, frustration, whatever other emotions that come up. And again, extremes become sociopath and psychopaths. And the resolution, this is my own summary, is just through body awareness, visualizations, piecing together the core trauma stories, maybe with help of therapists and professionals. And this is really important. There has to be an understanding that change and healing can happen anytime in our lives. To not feel powerless, to not feel alone, to not feel like you're the only one in this world who has to go through this and it is doomed for you. Everybody else just gets to keep on living their happy lives, and you're doomed to need to figure this out for yourself. You're doomed to being pulled down by this for the rest of your life. No, it just, this stuff works, and know that healing can happen anytime. It's available anytime. So approach this work in this way. And chapter 12, the core language of relationships. Now this gets really interesting. Get ready. So there is one main example in the book, and I would really recommend that you get the book to read it. So it's Dan and Nancy's example. They're a married couple. So Dan and Nancy have been married for a long time. They're empty nesters by now, and Dan's just on paper, Dan's really successful. He's like a CEO level executive, and Nancy is, if I remember correctly, like a hospital administrator. So both are really successful, but they have not been intimate for a very, very long time. And Nancy's thinking about leaving the relationship while Dan wants to hold on. So basically, they're having relationship difficulties. And so the point is, people often unconsciously choose a mate who will trigger their wounds in order to see the inherited patterns and heal that way. And uh, basically, to make the unconscious and the subconscious, below the surface, conscious, to have what lies beneath be revealed. And we can heal through finding core traumas and stories. So if you have challenges with your partner, notice the words of complaint and reflect on these questions. Do these words of complaint sound familiar? Do I have the same complaint about my mother or father? Did my mom and dad have the same complaint about each other? Have self-compassion. If you identify and resonate with any of these, have self-compassion. It's not anyone's fault. Did my grandmother or grandfather struggle in the same way? Is there a parallel between 2 or 3 generations? Does my experience with my partner mirror how I felt as a small child with my parents? So, they say relationships are really mirrors of ourselves, or our partner is a mirror of ourselves. So we're basically saying the same thing in family constellations and inherited family trauma work. So again, read Dan and Nancy's example, but I'm going to give you their genogram because it's really, really interesting. So on Dan's side, his main complaint of Nancy is that she needs too much from me. That's his core sentence, is that she needs too much from me. And you'll see that it goes back to the grandmother who died when mother was only 10 years old. And Dan's mother had this belief, or let me see how this is structured. Sorry. Yeah, so sorry. So the father's complaint, Dan's father's complaint, was actually underneath Dan's mother. So the complaint that was directed towards the mother was that she needed too much from me. And the complaint directed at the father from the mother was that he was a weak man. And then so now in Dan's generation, he starts feeling like a weak man, like how the mother complained the father, what the father was. And now Dan started to complain about Nancy exactly as how the father used to complain about the mother, that she needed too much from me. So Now, on Nancy's side, again, the complaint is he's not enough. So projecting Dan as weak. So 3 generations of dissatisfaction. So starting with the grandmother's complaint was, he's a no good alcoholic SOB. And then the grandfather's complaint towards the grandmother was dissatisfied. Actually, in this case, Nancy, yeah, Wolynn structured this, and for me, it's a little confusing. So how I'm reading this is that the grandmother was dissatisfied. And then because the grandfather was a no good alcoholic SOB. And then the mother was dissatisfied because the father was not good enough. And then Nancy was dissatisfied because Dan did not give Nancy enough, because this is all seen from Nancy's perspective. That makes more sense. Yeah. So in that sense, they fit in, their stories fit in like pieces of a puzzle. They just fit. So Nancy basically triggered Dan's own inherited trauma of not being enough from the perspective of the partner. And then Dan triggered Nancy's inherited trauma of always becoming dissatisfied with the partner. So it's just interesting how these dynamics work. We are put together to heal. So that's right. For resolution, go to the book. So read the book for the resolution of this example. So now 21 invisible dynamics that could affect relationships. This is really interesting. Get ready. So see if your circumstance apply with any of these sentences. So these are invisible dynamics that could affect your relationship. So 1, you had a difficult relationship with your mother. So what's unfinished with your mother is likely to repeat with your partner. And I learned from family constellation that we will try to get from our partner what our mother did not give us. So yes, 2 on that. And then 2, you reject, judge, or blame a parent. The emotions, traits, behaviors you reject in a parent are likely to live on unconsciously in you. And you might project complaints you have about that parent onto your partner, as we saw. Actually, we didn't see in Dan and Nancy's place example. But yeah, it's easily relatable that since we look for partners who, right, we look for partners who might mirror the relationship of our parents, because we were sort of taught that way and we're used to defining that, using our parents' relationship to define, even if subconsciously, how relationships should be. It's sort of an unconscious loyalty to how things are just what they are in the family. And then 3, you're merged with the feelings of a parent. If one parent feels negatively towards the other, it is possible that you will continue these feelings toward your partner. This can also be carried intergenerationally. So, if, let's say, if your father felt negative towards your mother, it is very possible, as a son, that you will feel negative towards your wife or your partner. And 4, you experienced an interruption in the early bond with your mother. So you can experience some degree of anxiety when you attempt to bond with a partner. Anxiety increases as relationship deepens. Isn't that interesting? Because you're not used to the level of intimacy with your own mother. You might begin to fault the partner, create conflict to create distance, or experience feeling needy, clinging, just jealous, or insecure. Or conversely, you can appear independent or avoid relationships altogether because you didn't have the conditioning of what it felt like to have a healthy attachment to someone. And that's attachment theory, something else, but easily applied to this. Where if we adopted insecure attachment with our mother, then that's going to carry on with our relationship with our partner later in life. Number 5, you took care of the parent's feelings. So for children with sad, depressed, anxious, insecure parent, their focus can be about giving comfort instead of receiving comfort. And then later in life, they can give too much to the partner or feel overwhelmed, burdened by the needs of a partner because what they're used to is that constant giving to a parent. So later in life, they associate that constant giving with normal way of attachment. And then they end up over giving and feeling like a martyr or a victim for overgiving. Number 6, your parents were unhappy together. If your parents struggled or didn't do well together, it's possible you won't allow yourself to have more than they had. In a family where exuberance is limited, kids can feel guilty when they're happy. So it basically creates a relationship ceiling, a happiness ceiling in a relationship when the parents were not happy. And because of unconscious loyalty, the kids end up not allowing themselves to have more happiness in a relationship than their parents did. This is actually really common. We see it everywhere. We see it, we see it in ourselves. We see it everywhere else. Number 7, your parents didn't stay together. So you may unconsciously leave a relationship at the same age that they separated, where you'll stay, but check out emotionally. Again, because of unconscious family loyalty, you will somehow, potentially, somehow limit the amount of time together or the quality of time together or the happiness you're allowed together or limit your emotional exchange to stay loyal to how things were done, how things were in the family. So number 8, your parent or grandparent jilted a former partner. You wouldn't think this affects your relationship, but it does. So if your father or grandfather left a former partner who was expecting marriage or children, even if they weren't married or anything, if that partner was expecting marriage and children, you as a daughter or granddaughter might atone for this by remaining alone, like the woman who was expecting marriage out of your father or grandfather. Or you could feel not good enough, like how this woman may have felt because the grandfather or the father rejected them. And then vice versa for in terms of grandmother and mother leaving a former partner, and then the son or the grandson, again, might atone for this and remain alone. Number 9, your mother's great love broke her heart. So you might carry the brokenheartedness or repeat losing your first love, carry the lovelorn feeling of your mother, or feel imperfect, not good enough, probably as she felt not good enough when she was set aside by her first, perhaps, great love. And you might feel that you're never with someone you want, something always falls short. And as the son, you might energetically try to become the first love to your mom. Number 10, your father's great love broke his heart. So this is just vice versa from the mother's situation, number 9. So you might carry the brokenheartedness or repeat losing your first love, carry the lovelorn feeling of your father, or feel imperfect, not good enough, as he did towards his first love. You might feel you're never with someone you want. And as the daughter, you might energetically try to become the first love to your father. I think that's clear enough. And number 11, your parent, grandparent remained alone. So out of allegiance, you might choose to stay alone as well, or create conflict, distance in a relationship so that you too can feel alone. That's for people whose parent or grandparent passed away very young while their partner was still very young. They passed, and the partner ended up just not remarrying or stayed in grief, something like that. And then somehow you carry that allegiance, and so you stay alone in order to feel alone. The number 12, your parent, grandparents suffered in marriage. If, for example, your grandmother was in a loveless marriage, alone to raise the kids, then you, as the granddaughter, can unconsciously associate these experiences with being married. So you might either repeat the experience or resist commitment so that the same thing doesn't happen to you. And vice versa is also true. You know, your grandfather was in a loveless marriage. Your grandmother died, drank, gamble, left, leaving your grandfather alone to raise the kid. Then you, as the grandson, can consciously associate these experiences with being married. You might either repeat the experience or resist commitment. So same thing, however, different combinations can happen, but basically the same storyline of you feeling like being in a marriage puts you in some sort of fear, and you ended up not wanting, either repeating the experience or not wanting the experience. 13, your parent was disparaged disrespected by the other parent. You as a child might recreate experience by being disrespected by your partner. Just think about that. You know, when we complain about our partner in front of our kids, or even, you know, kids can sense how the energy's flowing. So even if we don't say anything, kids really pick up the subliminal messages. So work it out with your partner. So otherwise the child will want to recreate, will feel compelled to recreate the experience by being disrespected by their partner. So 14, your parent died young. So you might physically distance yourself from your partner when you reach the same age as your deceased parent, or have spent the same amount of time in a relationship, or when your child reaches same age as that you were when that parent passed. Yes. So with the parent, with the circumstance where your parent died young, you might limit yourself to a healthy relationship up to when your parents up to when you reach that same age as your parent, or when your children reach the same age as you when your parents died young. I hope that makes sense. So basically, again, just creating that glass ceiling of how long you're able to enjoy the partnership based on how long your parents were able to enjoy their partnership up to the parent's death. So number 15, one of your parents mistreated the other. So if your father treated your mother poorly, you as the son might mistreat your partner, so your father isn't the bad one. Again, unconscious loyalty or allegiance. As the daughter, you might have a partner who mistreats you, vice versa. And then 16, you hurt a former partner. So you might unconsciously attempt to balance, I think I meant to say that hurt, by sabotaging your subsequent relationship. So the new partner might be unconsciously aware that they could receive similar treatment, and they may end up keeping a distance from you. So self-sabotage, because you might be unconsciously atoning for having hurt a former partner. And then number 17, you've had too many partners. So having too many partners may erode your ability to bond deeply in a relationship. And the separations may end up being more practiced, so it becomes easier, and relationships can lose depth. Number 18, you had an abortion or gave a child up for adoption, and so you may not allow yourself much happiness in relationship out of guilt, remorse, or regret. That one's very easy to understand. And number 19, you were your mother's confidant. So as a boy, you might have attempted to satisfy your mom's unmet needs that she couldn't get from your dad. So later, you might have difficulty committing to a woman, fearing they might need too much from you, like your mom. And you can still strike up quick relationships with women because you've done this before. You connected with your mom really well. You're your mom's confidant. You know how to talk to women. But you may end up leaving them just as fast in fear of emotional burden, like the emotional burden of needing to meet your mom's unmet needs. So the extreme is Oedipus complex. So the remedy is a closer bond with the father. And again, the father does not need to be alive. The father does not need to be close to you, reachable in any way. You could do this through visualization to be able to place your father back inside your heart, to feel that close connection with your father. That is necessary to heal. So number 20, you were your father's favorite. So now we're talking reversely for a girl. So a girl closer to the father than mother can feel dissatisfied with the partner she selected. The root of the problem is the distance she feels towards the mom. It's not necessarily the father. The relationship with the father can be not the root of the issue, but how she feels towards the mom can be the root of the issue. So the relationship with the mom is an indicator of how fulfilling our relationship will be with our partner. So when a daughter, for some reason, rejected the mom or judged the mom as less than the father or wasn't able to get close to the mother, then she is very likely to be dissatisfied with her partner, with the partner that she selected. So be aware of that. And then 21, someone in the family didn't marry. You could be identified with a parent or grandparent, aunt or uncle, older siblings, or those who's passed many generations ago who never married. Perhaps this person was ridiculed or deemed less than for not marrying, for staying single. You may be unconsciously aligned and also not marry out of unconscious loyalty. So that's 21. How many did you check off? Even if you checked off one, this work, the visualization work, can really benefit in resolving the issues that arose because of these dynamics, these sort of inherited dynamics. Okay, now let's move on to chapter 13, the core language of success. We all want success, but sometimes unresolved traumatic events in our family can hinder how success flows to us and how well we're able to receive it. So you could share unconscious identification with someone who failed or was cheated or cheated someone or received undeserved inheritance, etc. And early separation from mother can affect our ability to feel secure and financially vital. And rejecting a parent can also impede our success. So when we reject our mother, we can unconsciously distance ourselves from the comforts of life. No matter how much we have, it never feels enough when we've rejected our mother. And a man who rejects the father can experience himself as uncomfortable around other men. He can also be reluctant to embrace the responsibilities of being a father. Just notice that if you identify, if you resonate with any of these behaviors, then something might be impeding your ability to reach the success that you want. We can play out these dynamics in the workplace with our bosses, with our coworkers, so limiting our ability to receive success. Again, family traumas, inherited family traumas do not only stay in the family because it has to do with our unconscious, subconscious reactions and impulses and instincts. We can get triggered anywhere in the workplace, at home, in our relationships, with our bosses, with our spouses, with our kids, with a stranger on the street, who knows? By rejecting a parent instead of preventing ourselves from becoming them, which again, just logically, it seems like the right thing to do to reject a parent who's really been a negative influence. But when we do that, we actually tend to become more like them and oftentimes lead lives similar to theirs. What we resist truly persists. It's it's just what happens. If our father failed in business, we could also develop an unconscious loyalty to failure to make sure that we don't surpass him. Again, just having a glass ceiling, having a unconscious glass ceiling to how successful we can be. Because we want to stay loyal to the system. Or unconsciously, of course, we want to stay loyal to the system. We want to have an allegiance to the system, to our family. And when someone passes before they could complete something in their life, someone later in the family could also form a silent collusion and also fail to accomplish major milestone. Let's say somebody died before they could finish college, then someone later in the family could also form unconscious loyalty to that person who died before getting a college degree and also fail, just procrastinate in finishing their courses and actually graduating from college. They could unconsciously do that and call it procrastination or call it maybe an intellectual inability when it's actually an inherited family trauma. And then past poverty in the family can make it difficult for us to have more than they had. Again, out of family allegiance. And personal guilt, if someone embezzled or married for money, it can also impede success. And then there are other corresponding examples to this in the book, and also resolutions to demonstrate how healing can happen, how resolution can happen in each of these examples. So please do read the book, do pick up the book. So another 21 questions to consider, 21 potential hindrances to success. And I'm going to have you read through these. You can just freeze frame and then read it yourself. You could ask yourself, when you were young, did you experience a physical, emotional separation from your mother that could impede your success or a sense of abundance? Did you have impoverished ancestors? Was anyone rejected for being a failure, loser, gambler, blah, blah, blah? So go through these questions on your own and see if you answer yes to any of these. And then you would want to look into that family history, that family story, that inherited trauma. Okay, so this is chapter 14, the last chapter, core language medicine. So it starts out with a practice. So say your core sentence. Allow sensations of the old fear to arise and notice the familiar feelings. So the sensations signal that the core sentence is turned on without your knowledge. And as soon as you're aware of it, you can break the trance using these steps. So 1, recognize the familiar thoughts, images, and sensations inside you. Number 2, acknowledge that the old fear has become activated. And number 3, take an action to unhinge from the spiraling feelings, basically to disidentify from the story, from the belief, from the trauma, the inherited trauma. And for action, you can, 1, tell yourself these are not your feelings, they're inherited. And 2, place on body where you notice sensation. For me, it's the wrists, it's the joints for me in particular. So use breath work to stay aware so you remain disidentified from the content. We're not trying to shun, push away these physical manifestations, but to be able to stay with it, to use breath work, to have a distance from the content, have a distance from the storyline and the beliefs behind the storyline, and revisit practices, exercises, rituals in chapter 10 from insight to integration. So the practices we talked about, having a photo on the desk to practice healing sentences with the person of origin or the originator of the story, or light a candle, write a letter. What other exercises? Placing a photo of your mother to the left side of your bed. In terms of family constellations, the mother is always on the left side. So place a photo on the left bedstand, or place it on the left side of the headboard, and practice being connected to the love of a mother. So on and so forth. You can go back to that segment, chapter 10, for inspirations. So this is pretty much the last sentence from the book. So Wolynn writes, your secret language of fear was never about fear at all. It is love passed forward from those who came before you, a love that insists that you live your life fully without repeating the fears and misfortunes of the past. It is a deep love. It is a quiet love, a timeless love that connects you to everything and everyone. It is potent medicine. So I know he titled this chapter Core Language Medicine, but I have to say he doesn't really refer to it until this last sentence. So basically how I perceive it is that use these inherited traumas as healing, as impetus for healing. Use this work as medicine and see this inherited trauma as a gift, so that once we process these traumas, we are able to become stronger or more compassionate, or even have a wider perspective, a wider capacity to love. That's what I find with any sort of healing work, is that once I go through the dark nights of the soul, what I always end up with is an increased capacity to love, increased capacity to invoke compassion and self-compassion, an increased capacity to connect with people on a deeper and deeper level. And to be able to connect with my ancestors, those who came before me, in a steady flow of love. And that is life affirming. It comes back, and it's not about belief. I'm not trying to sell anybody belief in ancestors or belief in spirits, belief in family constellation, belief in therapy. It's not about belief. It's whatever it takes to live a life that is life affirming. That is the end goal. And to do that, it really helps when we're able to connect to our past, connect to these inherited traumas, these events in an environment of love, in a perspective of love. To be able to see these as gifts that are handed down instead of as hindrances that's been dished out unfairly. It makes a huge difference. And when we see it as a gift, I can almost say it is guaranteed that you end up with increased capacity for love and connection. So I think this is the last slide for this part. Yes, so this is the end of part 3. And before I end the book summary, I just, want to wrap this up, and I have a couple more slides just to close this out. So that was a lot, wasn't it? It's almost like I need to just relax and sip tea, even if I've done this work for really on my own for years, and and with the help of professionals and workshops now for a year. I'm still processing so much of it, but it's enriched my life so much. So where does that leave us? First of all, you're able to see it really didn't start with you. So drop the self-blame, drop the guilt, drop the shame, whatever behavior that you're seeing in yourself that is not exactly wanted. Drop the self-hate, drop the self-blame. And chances are it didn't start with the parents either. So drop the blame of somebody else. It's going to arise, defensive mechanisms will rise, so just watch it. But again, these are inherited. We're talking about cycles that are unconscious. And then just know that all of us have something to work on. And you're not alone and not the statistical outlier. Absolutely not. We all have so much stuff to work through. And the way that I'm approaching this work now, because here's the thing, I used to approach this work as in, I just got to dedicate myself to it. I've got to just get to the bottom of all of it, clear out all of the gunk once and for all so I could have this fairy tale life and live happily ever after. So let me just zone in on this and try to clear out everything, try to resolve everything, and try to heal myself in one single go. And that has not worked. And now I realize that's never going to work, because that's not what healing is about. For me now, healing is just about being able to connect to a flow of life just in this moment. Do not project into what other traumas or what other negative behaviors you might encounter within yourself, and try to troubleshoot them in anticipation of that future. Don't try to do that. Stay in the now, whatever that allows that flow to come back, the flow of life, the flow of love, the flow of feeling internally secure, internally loved and nurtured, whatever that gets you to that point of um, exhalation. It's inhale and exhale. So exhalation, whatever that allows you to sigh, that sigh of contentment, satisfaction, relief in this moment. That's when, you move on to doing life. I just don't feel like healing work is here to deter us, to remove our attention completely from the logistics that we need to do to survive. It's as something comes up, we take a look, we have curiosity, we resolve it, and then we move on. So to not feel like you have to resolve anything all at the same time, that's really important because there is no end to this. That's what I've heard my teacher in family constellation said, is just there's no end to this healing work. We just deal with it as something comes up and we laugh in between. We enjoy life, we celebrate, we laugh in between. And that's how everyone is doing it. So don't think you're broken or you're damaged because you still have stuff within you that you have not figured out. All of us are the same way. So remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. And there's no such thing as perfect healing. We take the progress that the current space-time grants us because we still need to take time to do laundry, to cook, to tend to our daily chores, to tend to our professional work, blah, 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 blah. And again, we celebrate life in between the time that's been granted to us. Let's say it just somehow I got laid off last year, for example. If I got laid off last year, I now have the time and space to really look into this thing. Great, I'll take that time. But when it's time to move on to the next stage where I found a job, I have to focus on the job right now, do so. Without feeling unfinished or without feeling guilt that now we have to set this work aside. So be kind and gentle with yourself. And then I mentioned this in the introduction and in part 1 of the book summary, in the part 1 video, that this work can be challenging. So it takes time to integrate. Weeks, months, years. Glacial progress is still progress. It takes time to get from the conscious mind to the subconscious to the unconscious. So you'll find that, I have an inspiration, or I went through the exercises today, and then 1 month later, or a couple of months later, or a year later, a point of clarification comes through, an aha comes through, or a deeper part of the subconscious mind suddenly becomes conscious for you to see, or something gets triggered where, wow, now you get a real life example of how your unconscious, subconscious mind works. So give it time. And as we uncover family traumas, it's easy for the natural defensive mechanism to come up and start blaming. We talked about this. So notice that we can be triggered. So evoke self-compassion, recognize the parts that come up. Don't shun them, but allow them to be as they are, and soothe them, of course. And take it easy if this is really too much. I just have to really throw it out there. For some people, the traumas, the inherited traumas are in the capital T, not even the capital T, it's the all caps trauma. Some people are in that category. In that case, find an expert. It's really worth it. Find an expert to be able to unpack this material in a safe way. I am not an expert, I'm just someone who is really enthusiastic and passionate about healing, about the newest self-help and positive psychology works that could really benefit all of our lives and allow us to reach a sense of inner equilibrium and inner equanimity and inner peace. I'm an enthusiast, shall we say, not an expert. So go to those people who have the clinical experience to bring you through this healing process, to bring you through this evocation of the all caps trauma in a safe way where you would stay in the challenge zone and not go into overwhelm. Absolutely, there are instances where we're in the realms of the all caps trauma, where you would benefit from expert professional help. And if you feel like, oh, you can handle it, you're dealing with a little T trauma, and you're able to stay in this challenge zone without going into overwhelm, that you're able to digest this, then this book really is a great start. It really is a great start. So why buy this book? Or even why read this book? Again, this book is just, it's a 30th print, so it should be everywhere by now. Easily available at your local library if you're in North America. And if you require another language, it's again published in 30 plus languages. So why read or why buy this book? If you say yes to even just one of the 21 markers that affect relationship, or one of the questions that you answered about success, then this book and a quiet afternoon to do the exercises would be well worth the money and the time. This is really, for me, groundbreaking for my life changing for my life. So it's worth it just to pick up the book and run through, skim through, read through the pages that you resonate with the most and do the exercises that apply to you the most. It really is worth it. And Wolynn goes through a lot of real life examples, and chances are you'll find yourself in at least one of the examples to make it super clear. And the great thing is he includes a resolution of how that person was able to heal. So you can model your own resolution and your healing after that example. And the book gives language to the silent, unconscious mechanisms and sufferings. Remember, we talked about the subconscious that are stored in non-declarative memory, which are not words, they're not sentences, they're not events, episodes, they are just urges, impulses, emotions, feelings. So we're giving words to the non-declarative memory so that we can bring it up to the conscious mind to be processed. So it gives us the language. It gives structured, practical, or it gives us the language to start looking into these unconscious mechanisms. And it gives structured, practical, reachable solutions that's been tested by Wolynn's own clinical practice. So becoming familiar with the vocabulary languaging of the subconscious can help with therapy, even if you just really resonate with this work and you want to seek help. it gives you an idea of the language that's used so you can more easily talk about this with the professional. So the example that I'm giving is like knowing the pain vocab. Let's say you have pain, on your arm and you're going to the doctors. It's very helpful when you're able to pinpoint the the quality of the pain beforehand and have a vocabulary in your head to be able to say, oh, this pain is, it's a scraping pain versus a stinging pain versus a throbbing pain versus a tugging or burning pain, instead of just going to the doctor saying, oh, it hurts. Having the vocabulary to able to specify the quality of the pain really helps with the healing. And in this case, not only in the physical sense, but also translated to this work, it's healing in the internal sense. So this book is a great start to allow you to bring forth some of your own vocabularies that resonate with you that you can share with the professional later on. Okay, again, Marketing for Mark Wolynn, because it's such a great book, available on Amazon in so many different languages. Turns out it's actually available. These languages that I post copy paste on here are actually available on the US Amazon site. Again, if you don't see your language here, try on the US Amazon site if you're in the US. But definitely, if you're in another country, try your native language. Go to your local bookstore or go online wherever your search engine takes you to find books. Search for Mark Wolynn, and then your language should pop up. But these languages, I think Italian, should I embarrass myself? I don't know these languages. I think Italian, Turkish, definitely Spanish, Polish, German, Chinese, both traditional and simplified versions are available. Russian, and I am missing one. I'm embarrassing myself and missing one. Not going to try. So anywho, if you see your language on here, it's available on Amazon. You can order it actually right now. Otherwise, search for it at your local book publisher or book buying source. It's bound to be there. 30 plus languages. Okay, so lastly, resources. Again, I mentioned this in part 1 in the introduction. Mark Wolynn has an interview, or did an interview with Tammy Simon in 2019. That's how I got to know his book, is because he did an interview with Tammy Simon on the Sounds True podcast. It is an excellent interview to become familiar with the family constellations work and what he means by inherited family trauma. So, if you're like, I don't want to go through 3 hours of material with Elin, don't want to go through the whole book summary, just listen to this podcast and find your local therapist or family constellations expert and coach. Get help if you need it. Only you know what you need, and take it at the pace that is right for you. And this is the end of presentation, but I just want to say that I totally understand that therapy is expensive. Um, it's totally worth it, and it really costs money and time. So that's why I say in the previous slide that it's great to use this book to familiarize yourself with the vocabulary of family constellations work. to get yourself familiar with inherited family trauma, so that when you do talk to your helpful professional, you are already proficient with what they may be talking about. So you're able to tell them, hey, I've read Mark Wolynn's book and I've done some exercises. So I don't have to start with the kindergarten. Let's define the terms and waste our entire hour that I'm paying for on defining the terms and understanding the terms. Let's go towards grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 3 right away and do some exercises that would actually help me out, or start to do the actual work that helps me out. So that's absolutely one of the advantages of reading this book before you seek help. But of course, gauge for yourself what it is you need. If you feel like this is really the big T, the all caps trauma, you cannot even face this book on your own, or reading one passage throws you into some emotional shitstorm, then go to a professional right away. You know what you need. If you have the ability, go for it. So I think that really is it for me for this presentation. Wherever you are, whatever you do, I hope that was helpful. Again, I'm coming from the perspective as someone who has really benefited from this work, and who is just, I am so grateful to this work, and so grateful for what family constellation has taught me, that everyone belongs, everybody, from the victim to the perpetrator, everybody belongs in the family constellation. Everybody deserves respect. And it hurts us when we're not able to interact with members of our family in respect and understanding, whether they're alive or not. So this work has brought me back towards love for family, being able to now I don't want to say construct an image that seems very forced. It's not about forcing, it's to be able to open up to compassion, to do this work out of self-compassion, and opening up to compassion to a point where I'm able to see the love in each generation, at least the intention of love in each generation, and the love flowing beneath each traumatic event, the love flowing through the traumatic cycles, the generational cycles. I'm still able to get in touch with that love. It's very touching. In spite of, despite of, whatever circumstances, and that's the point. To come back to an inner connection and an acceptance of all that was, and an appreciation of all that was. And with that, there is an availability of exalted emotions, like honoring the ancestors, honoring myself, honoring this life, respect for the ancestors, respect for myself, and respect for, it extends out to respect for all others who are around me, either in the form of family members, or in the form of professional colleagues and peers, or in the form of close friends and family, or in the form of just strangers or those in traffic, in commuter traffic with me. We're able to extend that love because of this acceptance that we have practiced, that we have brought back with our ancestors, with our family system. So it is very, very powerful. And I know this for sure that I'm not done yet. I'm at a point, finally, after 5 years, I'm at a point where I can share this work and be able to say what this work is about because I've been through it, but I know I would never be done. You know, the water runs deep for everybody. So don't try to rush. Again, just approach this work in a sense of self discovery from a perspective of wanting more self mastery, from a perspective of wanting more life, to wanting more flow of life run through you so that you would feel more satisfied and more in peace internally. And I want to thank you so much for doing this work, allowing yourself to do this work, and being interested in doing this work because your inner peace is my inner peace, is our inner peace, is world peace. That's what I always come back to when I do these book shares. When I do presentations, either it's book share or on meditation or on anything else, or even on astrology, I always come back to the sense that your work on your inner peace is my inner peace, is our inner peace, is world peace. You matter so, so much. And I just want to thank you for recognizing that. And thank you for picking up this book. And thank you for being interested. So I will go ahead and close there. Again, all the best to you from my heart to you. Yeah, so I will see you in the next presentation. Again, thank you so much and namaste.